August the 11th, 2023. Guys, you're looking at current satellite images. It is now 1:56 p.m. Central Time here in the U.S., and this is from the African coast over into the Gulf of Mexico, and you can see tips of South America and Cuba and Central America here. Now, what you're seeing here in this system, it hasn't been named. We've been watching it as it came across the Atlantic. Remember last week there was two systems that were not named, and I was watching both of them. This one came through. It still hasn't been named. It's still being torn apart by some upper level wind shear, and you can see coming off the east coast here that more than likely this will turn up and move out into the ocean. Now, again, it's not a tropical system or anything like that, but what happened, if you remember in the video the first of the week maybe it was, about the two systems out there, then there was a high pressure area that was over the Atlantic Ocean down through this area. And what we were talking about was that is what would steer, and actually in the end of the week, it was coming up right through the border of Texas and Louisiana. And that would be a steering mechanism for these storms. What happened now in this area, you're seeing what's called a Saharan dust layer, and it takes out the moisture in the storms and prohibits the strengthening, and that's how these storms work: warm water, warm and moist situations. Now, the cycle of these Saharan dust layers changes. It'll come out for a few days. You'll see a break in it, then you'll see another series of these storms come over. Or clouds come over. They're not storms. But during the week when I was watching it, it had a large Saharan sand cloud that was above the storms. If you guys look back at the video, you'll see it. And the high pressure pushed all of that sand, which looked like this right here, down into the storms and pretty much kept them from developing at all. Like I said, this is the remnants here. Turn that off. So, guys, we're setting up for a superstorm. I said that in that video. Look at what's coming off of Africa. This is along the equator in that area where you've got the convergence zone from the southern hemisphere to the northern, and that's where a lot of the Atlantic hurricanes develop. You've got sand coming out or dust layer coming out above them now. There's a break in the high pressure system, so we don't know how this will work out yet. But what I wanted to do with this video, a couple of things. Let's talk about whether you're in the Gulf states like we are, and we've seen our share of hurricanes, or along the East Coast, or wherever you're at, in the Yucatan or in Cuba, any of these places, in Mexico, that you've been hit before. We know something big is coming. We've got now less than a month to the peak of hurricane season on September the 10th. What are you going to need? Is it things that you don't have? Folks along our coastline in Florida, Alabama and so forth, Texas, Louisiana, you've had to board up things. You've had to rush to Home Depot or wherever, 84 Lumber, whatever it was, and get supplies. You had to get batteries. You had to get extra water. You had to gas up your vehicles. You had to get your generators ready. Make sure you had everything charged up and some extra candles and things like that. But guys, if we do have a superstorm that comes over Africa and out through the Atlantic, it will be a big news story. Here's my point. And people are going to start rushing to get these supplies. So don't be caught off guard. We know we're going into the peak here in less than a month. But it lasts until the end of November. But any of the supplies that we're talking about, if you don't get hit by a hurricane, then good. But all of those supplies you can use. So make sure you got some extra food and all of those things. Now, looking at Africa, right now there's military and political chaos. You know, Niger has revolted against the colonization agendas of both the West and Europe. Okay? And France is heavily involved in Niger, which is one of the central countries. And then along the west coast, you basically have a Western-backed NATO of African countries. That's not what they call it, but that's basically what it is. They have enough political power, the West and Europe, to control the elections and the governments and all of that. Well, that's in chaos right now. You had Newland go over, which she's second down from Blinken. But anyway, Newland went over, and according to mainstream media, and I reported on it, that she didn't get to meet with the exile president after the coup, and she didn't get to meet with the new leader, the military leader. And she came back and said basically that. But really, what's going on there? Think about who would benefit if you had a civil war in Africa. Millions and millions of people. Would it be Africa that would benefit from it, or would it be the colonizers? In other words, millions and millions of people get killed. Usually it's the poor people that are drafted and sent out to slaughter. But who would benefit? What's happening with France? They've cut off Russia by all their sanctions. Well, not just France, but France, it's important because they've cut off that supply of gas and oil. But they get a lot out of the African nation. You get uranium. You got the ability to have steel mills and things like that there, and grains. But what is the overall agenda? Now, they want control over it. We know that, the UK, France, and all, that's been going on for hundreds of years. Come in and actually take advantage of the situation there. But the tide is turning. Africa's awake, and they are actually backed by someone that is offering to be a trade partner with them, help them, and have a free trade, trading grain for whatever the bear needs, right? And so they do have superior military cooperation, and I think China's kind of right there with them. But again, who would benefit? It wouldn't be Africa. If you wiped out a lot of the people, but you still had the colonizers in charge, it would just be less people to feed and worry about, and worry about an uprising. But I think Africa is wising up, and they've seen and had enough of it. And if you think about the bear, have any of you heard about the Kinzhal missile? I think you have. It's hypersonic. It'll run at 10 Mach, or Mach 10, which is 2 miles per second. Nothing can touch it. Nothing can really see it coming. And it's steerable. It can have both nuclear tips or conventional explosives. And 4 were launched today into the Kiev area of the other country that's in the conflict. And they took out a large concentration of military experts from around the world and trainees, and people are getting ready to fly the F-16s, which they were warned not to bring into that conflict. But guys, we are seeing demons taking over. They've never left since the beginning, but now we've never seen this total demonic activity involved with totally or nuclear capabilities by these nations. Now, Babylon is going to fall, we know that. And right now, where would the queen of Babylon be? Some say Rome, some say other places. But guys, what nation is the most corrupt? Who has the least morals? Who has the most destruction on the kids? Look at what they're doing everywhere. And you know that with what we're seeing, we've got extreme heat. Guys, right now, the heat index is 119. It was 122 about 30 minutes ago. It's 99 degrees Fahrenheit. Over in the Gulf there, Iraq and Iran, in that area, they were reaching 156 heat index, breaking records. One was 146, and on the map I looked at yesterday, one was 56. And like I said, I've seen it here, and I think it broke records last month at 132 heat index. The earth is heating up. Canada's paying the price. The U.S. is paying the price of this heating, not man-made heating. This is from weakened shields, increased solar activity. But God said he was going to take Babylon down. What nation right now is the most corrupt? And really you have a whole group of them. You add in France and the UK and the US. And you can see that iniquity bounds everywhere, guys. But remember, Christ said if he did not intervene in the end times, no flesh would be saved. So don't be on the side that's cursing God for something you knew was coming on Babylon. Realize that this is his supernatural way, or more natural way, of bringing the end to the demonic possession on this planet and the destruction we see. We're watching it. You watch it. It's a heads up. Be safe.